Praveen? Praveen, are you there? It seems he is having a network issue.
Yes,
So,
yes, sir. Yes.
Madam?
Shall we start, sir?
Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, you may please start. Madam
Okay,
is
okay.
line.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. I am Nandini Shaha. I will be taking today's class.
Madam, let us welcome you first. Our student is there, he will welcome you. Then you can start. Just give one more minute, madam, please.
Okay, sir.
Praveen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please introduce madam and welcome her. And then she can start.
Yeah,
Sir, actually, he has introduced.
Yes, already introduced. Sorry, I joined late.
Yeah,
No?
yeah.
Yes, please. Madam,
Yeah.
you may please proceed. Please.
Okay, thank you. So, first, for today's session, the first class is on farm planning and budgeting, and the second class is on principles of farm management. So, for first class, I will be starting with farm planning and budgeting. Now, the first topic is farm planning. So first we have to understand what is farm planning. So what is farm? Farm is basically a business decision making unit where the farmer takes decision about crop cultivation or dairy or any other enterprises which he want to take. So farm planning is basically a decision making process. So what it includes? In case of farm planning, it includes both the organization as well as the management of the limited resources that the farmer has. Because in case of any person or a farmer, he has only a particular amount of resource. He doesn't have unlimited amount of resource which he can use to cultivate the crop or for rearing the livestock. So he has only a limited amount of resources, and he has specified goals. Like if you want to achieve profit maximization, or he want to achieve cost minimization, or maybe he want to do sales maximization, any of these things can be his specified goals. So through this farm planning, he manages and organizes the limited resources that he has, and with this he try to achieve his goals and of the farm business continuously. So while doing this farm planning, it involves selecting the most profitable enterprise or course of action from all the other alternatives available. Suppose he has alternatives of either sheep rearing, or maybe beekeeping, or maybe pisciculture, or maybe livestock rearing. But among all these things, and apart from that crop cultivation as well, among all these things, which of these will be the most profitable for him will be selected by him so that he can achieve his desired goal. So the objective of farm planning is basically improvement in the standard of living of the farmer. How so? Because when a farmer does this farm planning, he will be achieved to minimize his cost as well as maximize his profit. So as a result, his income will be increased. And with this increased income, his standard of living can be increased. So as a as a broad objective, the farm planning always aims to improve the standard of living of the farmer. But if we want to know what is the immediate goal, means what is the what the farmer want to achieve in the very near future. So his immediate goal is to maximize the net income or profit through improved resource use planning, through the better management of the resource, through better resource use efficiency. So now, how farm planning can help farmer? So if there is no need of the farm planning, the farmer will not use it. But farm planning can help farmer in a different ways. How so? First of all, it helps him to examine very thoroughly what is his resource situation, means how much of the labor, how much of the land, how much of the capital or other resources he is having, and his past experiences, like in the past years how he have used these resources to cultivate the crop or for livestock rearing or for pisciculture or for beekeeping. And based on this past experience as well as how he is using these resources and how much resource he is having, he will decide which of the new enterprises or among different alternatives and different methods will fit his situation in the best possible way. So it also helps him identify different types of supply needs. Different types of supply needs means how he can acquire more land, or maybe whether he can able to lease land from other people, or he may take labor from through hiring new labor, or maybe he can purchase new capitals. So it also helps him to identify these different supply needs for the existing as well as his improved plan of action. Third one is it also helps him find out the credit need. Credit need means it often happens that the farmer who is actually cultivating doesn't have the much required amount of capital, or you can say money, to actually takes the best possible action, course of action. So he needs some amount of credit to buy some capital, machinery, equipment, or maybe hire new labor, or maybe lease some land or buy some land. So it also, if he plans accordingly previously before going into actually putting the plan into action, he will be able to find out how, in what time, how much amount of money he will be needed, and from which sources he can take those credits, from institutional or non-institutional, and he can plan according to that. Fourth one is it also gives him an idea about the expected income after repayment of all the loans or credit he has taken, and also all the expenditure on production, marketing, consumption. After all those things, giving all those things, after deducting all those things, it will also give him an idea how much amount of income he can actually generate from the course of action he is going to take. And lastly, a properly thought farm plan also may provide cash income at points of time when they may be most needed at the farm. It means that if a farm plan is well put out, well thought, then from that farm planning, he can also plan how he can generate much of cash income from different sources throughout the period of crop cultivation or livestock rearing, where he will generate those income and he will put that income into his crop cultivation. So these are the five ways how farm planning can help farmers. Now coming to the topic, which is farm plan. So we know farm planning, but what is a farm plan? A farm plan is basically the output of farm planning. It's a program of total farm activities of a farmer drawn out in advance, means before putting it into action, when the farmer is planning his future course of how he will do all the things regarding crop cultivation or maybe livestock rearing, it will list out the total farm activities he is going to do in the future. And a farm plan is the program of all these total farm activities. Now when uh, creating a farm plan or maybe doing a farm planning, there are some five characteristics which need to be included so that the farm plan can be called as a good farm plan. So what is this? It should be flexible. That means it should not be rigid in terms of time. Means if someone is planning that this farm plan will be taken within 5 months or maybe 6 months, so this time constraint should not be there that it has to be completed within 5 months, because we know that agriculture is very much dependent upon climatic condition. So there may be some things can go wrong, or maybe he was not able to sow at time, or maybe reap the fruits at time. So because of that, the farm plan should be flexible enough so that it gives him some buffer time within which he can take care of his endeavor. Second one is it should maximize the resource use efficiency. Why so? Because the farmer has a limited amount of resources. he doesn't have unlimited amount of resources which he can use. So with this limited amount of use, he has to put this limited amount of resource in different enterprises, or maybe if he is an specialized farmer, then he have to put in only one enterprise. But apart from that, he need to find out how to use these resources in such a efficient manner that there is no wastage, and there is also the resource will give him the maximum benefit out of this use of the resources, and also it will reduce his cost, thus it will give him more and more income. The third one is, which gives us the third point, which is it should aim towards profit maximization through optimum resource use and balanced combination of farm enterprise. That means a farmer should, or a good farm plan should always aims to maximize the profit or the net income of the farmer. How so? By optimizing the use of resources. Again, the same thing, because he has limited resources, so there should be an optimum use of the resources, and as well as he should not be taking any random enterprises to cultivate take care, but he should take a balanced combination of farm enterprises so that it profit can be maximized. And fourth point is, risk and uncertainty should be always accounted for a good farm plan, because since again the agriculture is a very risky venture, because it is totally dependent upon climatic conditions. So when there is climatic conditions included in a venture, there is always very possibility of very high risk and uncertainty. So when preparing a farm plan, the farmer should always takes into account the amount of risk and uncertainty associated with this particular venture. And the last point is, a good farm plan should always help in the timely acquisition of the farm credit as well as the repayment of the farm credit. It should always guide the farmer when and where, from where the farmer can take credit, and also after the completion of the venture, like after the selling of the produce, or maybe after the selling of the uh, livestock, or maybe bee honey, whatever maybe it is, after the generation of the income, the credit or the loan which the farmer has taken previously should be repaid within the time, so that he doesn't become a willful defaulter. Now coming to the points where we will discuss about the components of farm planning. So there are 5 components of farm planning. The first point is statement of the objective function. What it does, it explains what a particular farmer wants to achieve through the planning. And farmer may want to achieve sales maximization, he may want to achieve profit maximization, or maybe he want to achieve cost minimization. Whatever it is, the statement of the objective function will explain what he particularly aims to achieve through the planning. Second one is inventory of scarce resource and constraint. Inventory, we know that it's basically a list of all the things. So the farm planning should give an exhaustive list of all the resources he is having, and also what are the constraints he is having, and also is how these constraints can be removed, or maybe how this scarce resources can be used. Third is alternative choices. What does this mean? It means that there are different types of crops or livestock enterprises which is available to the farmer, and among all these alternatives, he has to choose one or two, or maybe a combination of two, three in case of diversified farming. So what happens that when he is deciding what combination of enterprises to choose, he need to take care into account all the alternatives he is having. So during farm planning, these alternative choices should be taken care of, so that he can choose the different enterprises from all the alternatives he is having. Fourth point is input-output coefficients. What does it mean? The requirement of each of the several scarce resources which he is having, and also how much financial return per enterprise he will be achieving after completion of the venture. All these things should be well put out in the farm plan. And lastly, planning technique. So there are different types of planning techniques which can be used. So the sophisticated techniques always gives better result when coupled with a proper understanding how the particular planning environment is working, and also if there is some input output data which was previously gathered, that can be also used to take into account while doing the planning technique. Now there are three steps in farm planning. The first one is planning itself. It includes the identification and definition of the problem. What does it mean? That when doing the farm planning, first we have to identify what is the actually problem associated with the existing farm plan with the farmer. So if there is some problem, first we have to identify it, then we have to define it. What is the problem? What is causing the problem? And after that, we have to collect information about the problem and about other additional information as well. And then we have to identify what could be the alternative solution. And lastly, we have to analyze the each alternative. And after doing all these things, we will be able to plan how this problem, this other alternative solution, how this can help the farmers. Second one is implementation. So once all these things has been done, there has been planning made that how these things will be, how the problems will be eradicated or how the alternative solutions can help. The second is the best alternatives should be selected, and then action should be taken to place the plan into operation. So once we have all figured out what could be the problem, what could be the alternative solutions, then we have to take into account that among all the alternatives, which can be the best one. And after deciding which can be the best one, we have to put the plan in action. And one of the important part of this implementation phase is that the finding of the necessary resources, financing of the necessary resources. And the last step is control. So this control provides observing the result of the implemented plan to see if the specified goals and objectives are being met. So in control phase, what happens that once the plan has been put into action, we have to observe whether the result of that particular plan is in line with the specified goals or objectives, is in line with the specified goals and objective or not. So control system requires checking a type of activity where they make regular checks on the plan and they monitor the progress and result as measured against the established goals. So once they check how the progress is making and what are the results, then they will measure against the established goals. And if there is any discrepancy, then again it will start from the planning phase and they will try to define and identify the problem. Now, coming to the second part, which is farm budgeting. But before going into farm budgeting, I would like to ask everyone, if you have understood everything, then it's okay. I will proceed into the farm budgeting. But if there is any problem, you want to ask any question or there is any problem in the understanding, you can ask me. Hello. I hope there is no question. So I will proceed further to the next topic, which is farm budgeting. Okay. So what is farm budgeting? Farm budgeting may be defined as a detailed physical and financial statement of farm plan. No. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Okay.
I request all the no, yeah, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So I will proceed to the next topic, which is
You
farm.
can continue, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So what is farm budgeting? Farm budgeting basically a detailed physical as well as financial statement of a farm or in a farm plan, or if there is a change in the farm plan also, that will be also discussed in the farm budgeting for a particular amount of time. So in other words, we can say that farm budgeting is an expression of the farm plan in monetary terms. In monetary terms, through estimation of receipts, expenses, and profit, it is called farm budgeting. So there are four types of farm budgeting. One is partial budgeting, second one is enterprise budgeting, third one is cash flow budgeting, and the fourth one is complete budgeting. So first is partial budgeting. So from the name we can understand that it's partial budgeting means only for a part of the enterprise or a part of the farm business. So it refers to estimating the outcomes or returns for a part of the business. In a partial budget, we calculate the expected change in profit, or maybe we can say expected change in cost and returns and income for a proposed change in farm business, for a particular small change in farm business. A partial budget only contains those income and expense items which will change. So suppose for an enterprise there are 4 or 5 activities and only one activity will be changed. So in case of partial budgeting, we will only consider that particular activity and the cost and returns associated with it. The other 3 or 4 activities where there is no change, we will not consider the income and expenses of those particular activities. Only those activities where there is change, we will consider only the income and expenses of those, not the total value. And the final result of partial budgeting will give us the estimate of the increase or decrease in profit. Like suppose if there is a change in activity, then for changing of these activities, how the cost has been increased or decreased, or maybe profit returns have been increased or decreased, and as a result, total result, how this profit will be changed because of this change in cost and return. So this net change in profit can be computed by estimating the total increase in profit minus the total reduction in profit, and this way we will get the total net profit. Now, all the changes in a farm plan can be adopted with the help of a partial budget, which can be grouped into 3 types. One is enterprise substitution, second one is input substitution, and the third one is size or scale of operation. So what happens in enterprise substitution? Suppose previously the farmer was cultivating mustard, and now he want to change his crop from mustard to wheat. So this is basically enterprise substitution, where has substituted his previous cultivation of crop, which was mustard. Now he is cultivating wheat. The second one is input substitution. So in case of input substitution, suppose previously he was using organic manure for cultivation of crop. Now he is using inorganic fertilizer for cultivation of crop. So what happens that in this case there is substitution in case of input. Previously he was using organic manure, now he is using inorganic fertilizer. And the third one is size or scale of operation. That means suppose previously he was cultivating in 5 acre of land. Now he has bought some land, or maybe he has leased in some land. So now his size of farm become from 5 acre to 7 acre. So there is also change. So this comes under the umbrella size or scale of operation. But this partial budgeting technique is not free from limitation. There are two limitations in this partial budgeting technique. One is that it does not always provide a complete solution. So sometimes may happen that there is some problem in a particular farm plan of a farmer, and the farmer wants to change only some certain part of that activity or his venture. But with those change in those some part of the plan, there may be not the solution of the whole system or the whole problem he was facing. And the second one is the result of partial budget is subjected to variation in output, input prices, availability of resources, variation due to soil type, soil fertility, etc. So these two are the limitation of partial budgeting technique. Now coming to the enterprise budgeting. So what is an enterprise? First we have to understand that enterprise is a single crop or livestock commodity, and most farm consist of a combination of several enterprises. So when we tell that, suppose a farmer is cultivating cattle. So cattle rearing is a apart from that, maybe he is beekeeping. So apiculture is another enterprise. Maybe he is doing crop cultivation like wheat or maybe mustard or maybe rice. So that is another enterprise. So it happens that in most of the cases, most of the farm business is consist of a combination of several enterprise. So an enterprise budget is an estimate of all the income and expenses associated with the specific enterprise and estimates its profitability. That means if someone is calculating enterprise budget, then he will be calculating an enterprise budget for particularly apiculture or beekeeping, or maybe he will be doing an enterprise budgeting for the pisciculture or fish culture. So in that case, in case of enterprise budget, he will calculate all the incomes associated with the apiculture and all the expenses associated with the pisciculture, apiculture. And then he will calculate the returns and other ratios which you may want to calculate, the total profit, the total profitability, total productivity, all these things comes under enterprise budget. And enterprise budget is a prerequisite for the preparation of a complete farm budget. Why so? Because a complete farm includes different types of enterprises. So when a farmer is doing enterprise budget for different types of enterprises, it gives him the total idea about his total farm business. So enterprise budget is always a prerequisite for the preparation of a complete farm budget. This enterprise budget lists down all the expected output, both in physical as well as value terms. Physical terms means suppose in kilogram or maybe tons or maybe quintals, etc. And in value terms, it means monetary terms, in terms of rupees, in terms of lakh rupees, crore rupees, etc. for a particular activity of the farm. And enterprise budget is particularly important because it depicts the relative profitability of different enterprises. Because when a farmer is doing enterprise budget for several enterprises which he is having, then he will be able to find out which of the enterprises is more profitable, which is giving him less profit, or maybe which of the alternatives he is giving him loss. So it also helps him to determine the relative dominance of different enterprise, because it will also help him to understand how much share is obtained, how much share of the income is contributed by which of the enterprises. The third one is cash flow budgeting. So what is a cash flow? Outflow, and a cash flow budget is a summary of this cash inflow and outflow for a particular business over a given period of time. So cash flow budgeting is a forward planning tool, because cash flow is often prepared, cash flow statement is often prepared at the starting of a period, of a starting of a year. What happens that it plans for the future, or forward plan tools, where he will where the budget tries to propose the to estimate the future borrowing needs, as well as the how the farmer will be able to repay the loan according to his capacity. The cash flow budgeting also can be used to assess the whole farm plan. So it can help, because when we are assessing the whole farm plan, we will be able to find out the cash inflow and the cash outflow, how it is happening in the business, and how it will be able to help the farmer in deciding for where the cash outflow will be going, or from where he will be able to take the cash. And the last is, the primary use of a cash flow budget is to project the timing and the amount of new borrowing. That means from when and from where the new borrowing can be done, when the business will need that amount during the year, and also the timing and the amount of loan repayment which the farmer can pay from his earned income. The last one is the complete budgeting. So from the name itself, we can understand the complete budgeting is done for the whole farm or the whole business altogether. It's a technique for assembling and organizing the information about the whole farm in order to facilitate decision. Because while taking decision regarding the total farm plan or the total farm business, we need to we need to gather different types of information about all the enterprises which is involved in this venture. So this complete budgeting technique helps us to assemble and organize the information about the whole farm so that we or maybe the farmer can take decision, and it will help him to take those decisions. It attempts to estimate all the costs and returns pertaining to the whole farm business, and it represents a complete picture of the farm business. And it is generally used by beginners or by those farmers who want to completely overhaul their existing farm organization and operation. That means this type of budgeting techniques generally used for beginners because they are only starting new, so they want to get the total idea of his business, get the total picture of his business. And also for those farmers who want to completely turn upside down of his business and completely change his enterprises, in those cases also complete budgeting works very well for them. So with this, I conclude my lecture. If anyone wants to ask any question, you can ask, or maybe you can write in the chat, or if you have any doubts, you can also write that too. Repeat it. Hello.
Yeah, I think no one has any doubt, ma'am.
There is some chat. Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As you have said, this enterprise budgeting for this, sorry, so
Yes.
Yes, Pooja.
in partial budgeting, no, ma'am, in partial budgeting,
Yeah.
you have said when we change the crops, it is taken under that.
Yes, yes.
It is not like ma'am, it is enterprise budgeting we should include in that.
See, enterprise budgeting is also a type of partial budgeting, because when you are doing some changes in a particular enterprise, you are not changing for the whole farm. Okay, so you're doing only for the particular part. So that is also comes under partial budgeting, but not all the partial budgeting will comes under enterprise budgeting. How so? Maybe you can change only some like input substitution, but you are not completely changing the whole enterprise. You are doing some changes in a particular enterprise, or maybe some changes in all the enterprises. So that will also fall under partial budgeting, but it will not come under enterprise budgeting. But when you are doing enterprise budgeting, it will be both, can be taken as enterprise budgeting or maybe taken as partial budgeting as well.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
I hope your doubt is clear.
Yeah, ma'am. Got it.
Okay. So Dr. Rita Rathore ma'am has asked one thing. Please repeat complete budget. Okay, ma'am, I will repeat. So a complete budgeting is a technique where we will takes into account all the expenses, all the receipts, all the things which has been changed for the whole farm plan, whole farm business. Suppose there is three types of enterprises. One is apiculture, one is crop cultivation, one is pisciculture. So if there is change in all these three enterprises, so there is change in the whole farm plan. So when we are calculating expenses or the receipt or the profit or income for this, all these three activities, which is the part of the whole farm business, then we'll call it as a complete budgeting technique, because we are taking all the enterprises all together. So in this case, what happens that we'll get the holistic picture of the farm plan, how the farm is working, where are the expenses going, how the income is generating, and it also will help us to gain knowledge about the complete farm business. And it is mainly used by the beginners, because when a person is first starting, he will like to have a complete picture of his farm business. And also for those farmers who want to change his over farm organization. Suppose a person is having apiculture, pisciculture, and crop cultivation, and he wants to completely shift away from these three types of enterprises, from suppose these three to crop cultivation and maybe sheep rearing or livestock rearing. So when he is changing all together of all his farm business, then he also wants to look his holistic picture, how now his receipts and expenses are doing, and how the new enterprises will give him returns. So for those type of case also, we need to use complete budgeting technique. Ma'am, I hope it's clear.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else? I think there is no question. So can we take 5 minutes break? Then I will continue with the principles of farm management next class.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Hello.
Yes,
Hello. Shall we
ma'am.
start?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Hello. 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 Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You can. Yes, yes.
Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. So today's second topic is principles of farming. I hope the PPT is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So first coming to the introduction. So what we mean by farm management principles. So these are some principles which helps and guide. There are 7 basic principles which are involved in this decision making process. So these 7 are: first one is principles of variable proportion, or we can say law of return. Second one is cost principle. Third one is principle of substitution between inputs, or we can say factor-factor relationship. The fourth one is principle of substitution between products, which is also known as product-product relationship. The fifth one is equi-marginal return principle or opportunity cost principle. The second last is principle of comparative advantage, and the last one is time comparison principle. So first one is principle of variable proportion and laws of returns. So we all know this variable proportion law from the production economics itself. It helps in deciding the optimum amount of a particular resource or input that needs to be applied for the cultivation of. So that it will lead to profit maximization. It will help the farmer to achieve the maximum amount of profit. The second one is the size of the farm. The farmer should operate with a given amount of resources. So as we already have discussed that the farmer has only a certain amount of or a limited amount of resources. So with this limited amount of resources, he cannot cultivate or he cannot operate a indefinite amount of size of farm. So he need to decide the size of the farm or the business which he will be operating with the given amount of resources. And the last one is the amount of input one should use. Since the amount of capital, or you can say the amount of monetary capital which the farmer is having, with that amount of monetary capital, he will be only able to purchase a certain amount of inputs or resources. So the total amount of inputs he also need to decide, and that will be and this principle will help him to decide that also. So in agriculture, most of the cases will saw the law of diminishing returns. So there are also two types of returns. Laws of returns are there: law of increasing returns and law of constant returns. But in case of agriculture, most of the cases, now in all of the cases, will always see that law of diminishing returns is operating. The law of diminishing returns state that if increasing amounts of one input is added to a production process, that means if we keep on increasing a particular input by 1 unit or maybe 2 unit to the previously added already units, then while all the other inputs, means if suppose there are 4 or 5 types of inputs are increasing and we are only increasing keeps on adding only a particular type of input, and while keeping others constant, then the total amount of output that will be increased
for increasing that particular amount of input will keep on decreasing. Means the first suppose we are increasing labor by 1 unit. So suppose there were previously 10 laborers who were operating in the farm business. Now we have first added 1 unit. So now 11 units of farm laborers are operating on the farm business. Suppose that extra unit of input in the sense labor is giving 5 units of production. Now, if we increasing another unit of labor, then he will give less than 5. It may be 4.5, it may be 4, it may be 3, whatever. Now, if we increase another unit of labor, then it will give the output which will be lesser than the previous unit. Maybe if previous unit was giving 4 units, it may give 3.5 or 3. Like that, that amount of output added per unit of variable input will eventually start decreasing. The law of diminishing return is also known as principle of added cost and added returns, because when we are adding a particular input, we'll always take care into account for that particular input how much cost is increasing for purchasing that, and from that inputs the total output is increasing, and the total input output is giving how much additional return. So based on this added cost and added return, we'll take the decision regarding the profit maximization. So this law is also known as principle of added cost and added returns. I hope it's clear. We'll move on to the next. We'll discuss about this principles of variable proportion with the help of this table. So I have here given a table where we can see that the input is nitrogen and there is estimated yield of rice, which is given as kg per hectare, and there is also given marginal productivity or MP, marginal cost MC, total cost TC, total returns TR, and marginal returns MR. So the farmer need to decide the most profitable level of nitrogen used by equating marginal product with the price ratio. So it happens that the price of paddy is rupees 0.84 kg and nitrogen is rupees 4.02 per kg. So according to the given data, if we look at the table, we can see that the up to 40, this MC is almost near to MR. So if we just increase the level from maybe 40 to 41 or 42, this MR maybe will be equal to MC. So the farmer will be at equilibrium at that point where MR will be equal to MC, which is not given here, but from the data given, it can be approximated that it will be near 41, 42, or maybe 43 kgs per hectare. The farmer, if applies more than this amount, then his total returns will be much less than the, his marginal returns will be much less than the marginal cost. Because if we look at this table, we can see that when he is applying 50 kg per hectare, his marginal cost remains same, which is 40.2, but his marginal returns became 5.04, which is much lower than his marginal cost. So he is having a loss of rupees 35, which will reduce his total returns as well. So the farmer is advised to produce up to that point where MR equal to MC, and beyond that point, since he will be having loss, he should stop his application of the input. Now coming to the second principle is cost principle. So while deciding different types of production decision, while taking different types of production decision, most of the farmer producer give much importance to the cost of the production, because he is having limited amount of monetary resources. So in that particular limited amount of monetary resources, he need to produce a particular amount of crop or maybe livestock to achieve his desired goal. So he need to take care into account the cost of production of a particular thing. So while going into further details, we need to understand first what is short run and long run. So there are two types of accounting period or planning period. One is called short run, one is called long run. What is a short run? A short run is a period of time when among at least one of the factors is fixed, while others are variable. At least one should be fixed. There may be two, there may be three, there may be four, more than one amounts inputs can be fixed, but there should be at least one factor which needs to be fixed. And the second one is long run. So long run is a period of time where all the factors are variable. So there is no fixed factor. There is all the factors are variable and they are varied throughout the time. So now, in case of cost principle, application of the fixed and variable cost principle, we need to understand these following points. First one is, in the short run, the gross return should always cover the variable cost. The total return, gross return means the total return. Total return should always cover the variable cost and the maximum net revenue obtained when MC is equal to MR. Maximum net revenue obtained means the profit will be maximized when marginal cost will be equal to the price of the product, which is also equal to marginal returns. Second is, in the short run, sometimes this also happens that we are telling that for profit maximization, we need to follow the rules MC equal to MR. But in short run, it also can happen that even though the farmer is following this MR equal to MC rule, it is bringing him loss. In that cases, the aim of the farmer will be minimize the loss. He will not then will try to maximize his profit because he is already in loss. At that point, he will try to minimize his loss. Third point is the selling price must be greater than the variable cost. This means variable cost, even if it's lower than total cost to continue the production. But it means that suppose a particular thing, maybe a particular toy, is production cost is ₹3 variable cost and ₹7 is fixed cost. So his total cost is ₹10. Now to gain profit, it the minimum selling price should be ₹11. Suppose the selling price is not 11, it is ₹8. So what happens that he is having ₹2 amount of loss. But if we compare with the variable cost, we can see that the variable cost is 3 and the total selling price is 8. So he is covering that 8 minus 3 rupees 5, it's covered of the fixed cost. जो फिक्स्ड कॉस्ट का जो ₹7 है उसमें से भी ₹5 वो सेलिंग प्राइस से कवर हो रहा है. लेकिन अगर वो प्रोडक्शन स्टॉप कर देगा, जो कि नेक्स्ट पॉइंट में बोला हुआ है कि इफ द सेलिंग प्राइस इज लोअर देन वेरिएबल कॉस्ट, then the operation should be shut down. How so? Fixed cost ₹7 है. If वो अभी तो ₹2 का लॉस हो रहा है, अगर वो स्टॉप कर दिया बनाना प्रोडक्शन करना, देन क्या होगा कि उसका टोटल जो फिक्स्ड कॉस्ट है जो कि ₹7 वो पूरा उसका लॉस हो जाएगा. Okay, so now suppose in the third scenario, what happens that the selling price is ₹2. Now how much is loss? His loss is ₹8, which is more than his fixed cost. So he is not able to cover his variable cost also. In this case, the operation should be shut down. If the gross returns are less than total cost but are still larger than variable cost, guiding principle should be to keep increasing production as long as MR are greater than MC. The same thing which I have already discussed. And in the long run, the gross return should be more than variable plus fixed cost, which is total cost. But in long return, since there is no fixed cost, it should be greater than variable cost. Now coming to the third point, which is principle of substitution between inputs or factor-factor relationship. So in agriculture, different types of inputs or practices can be substituted because there are different types of substitutes available. So this substitute can be used in different varying degrees for producing a particular type of input, for a particular type of output. So suppose the farmer wants to farmyard manure, he can use green manure, he can use bone manure, or maybe he can use inorganic fertilizer. So from these different types of choices which he is having, he may choose either a particular source. Maybe he can choose only farmyard manure, he can choose only green menu, or maybe he can choose a combination of different types of sources. So it is prudent for the farmer to choose a particular combination so that the total cost of production will be least. Means it will help him to minimize the total cost of production, as well as it will also give him the better resource use efficiency. So it involves the principle of substitution between inputs because it provides the determination of the least cost method of production. So this particular principle, which is called as the principle of substitution between inputs, it helps the farmer to determine the least cost combination of different types of production method. So with this help of this particular principle, the farmer can decide which of the combination to choose so that the cost will be minimized. It states that suppose the quantity of the output is X, there is no change in the quantity of the output. So it will be economical to substitute one factor for another if the cost of the first is less than second. How so? Because suppose one is using two types of inputs. One is land and another one is labor. So suppose the farmer wants to increase labor and he wants to replace land. So if increasing labor, if the cost of increasing labor is more than the reduction in the cost due to land is more than this, so it will not be economical for him. कि अगर लेबर लेने के लिए उनको ज्यादा पैसा खर्चा करना पड़ रहा है अभी, जो कि पहले से ज्यादा हो रहा है, ये suppose he wants to take 2 units of labor which will cause him ₹300 extra. और अभी जो ये 4 यूनिट्स या 5 यूनिट्स का लैंड जो ये रिप्लेस कर रहे हैं उससे उनका कॉस्ट कम हो रहा है ₹200. सो टोटल उनका तो ₹100 कॉस्ट इंक्रीज हो गया ना, तो उससे उनका कोई फायदा है नहीं. सो इट इज नॉट इकोनॉमिकल फ्रॉम हिम. सो इट विल बी इकोनॉमिकल व्हेन इट विल बी रिवर्स्ड. सपोज 2 यूनिट लेबर लेने के लिए उनको एक्स्ट्रा कॉस्ट देना पड़ रहा है 200, और उनका ये जो 4 यूनिट्स या 5 यूनिट्स का लैंड जो कम हो रहा है उनके लिए उनका कॉस्ट कम हो रहा है suppose by 400. So it happens that its total cost is reduced by ₹200. So in that case it will be economical. So it can be described as farmer should go on adding one resource, suppose labor, as long as the additional cost means जो उस added resource को add करने के लिए लग रहा है जो कि एक्स्ट्रा हो रहा है इज लेस देन सेविंग इन द कॉस्ट, जो कि रिप्लेस करने की वजह से, कोई रिसोर्स को रिप्लेस करने की वजह से कम हो रहा है, तभी इट शुड बी इकोनॉमिकल. Here I have described the process. First is decrease in cost should be greater than increase in cost. So decrease in cost कैसे हम लोग कैलकुलेट कर सकते हैं? क्वांटिटी ऑफ द रिप्लेस रिसोर्स, कितना क्वांटिटी कम हो रहा है इनटू इसका प्राइस जो भी है 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, whatever, it should be greater than quantity of added resource, जो भी quantity of resource is being added और उसका price. So if we just change the side of these things, we'll get that the guiding principle should be MRS, or maybe we can say MRS, material resource technical substitution, should be greater than price ratio. प्राइस रेशियो अगर ये ज्यादा हुआ तभी we should keep on increasing the amount of resources which are being added. But there are some rules which we need to understand. There are 3 profit rules. First one is if substitution ratio is greater than price ratio. Means if MRS is greater than price. When it happens, it means a decrease in cost is greater than increase in cost. So in that case, we can reduce the cost by using more of the added resource. So we have already seen it here that decrease in cost should be more than increase in cost. Substitution ratio is less than price ratio. That means decrease in cost is less than increase in cost. So अगर ऐसा हुआ तो कोई फायदा नहीं है कि हम लोग क्यों रिप्लेस करें किसी को. तो then we can reduce the cost by using more of the replaced resource. Means जिसको हम रिप्लेस कर रहे थे उसी को हमको ज्यादा करके यूज करना चाहिए, और जिससे हम रिप्लेस कर रहे हैं जो कि ऐड हो रहा था उसको हमें कम करना चाहिए क्योंकि उसके वजह से हमारा कॉस्ट इंक्रीज हो रहा है. और द थर्ड पॉइंट इज इफ द सब्स्टिट्यूशन रेशियो और MR is equal to price ratio, this will be the point when the farmer or the farm business will achieve the point of least cost combination. I hope it is clear. Since there are some mathematical notations, if anyone have any confusion, you can ask me. I will again repeat it. I hope there is no question. You can ask in the chat as well. Okay, so there is no question. I will proceed to the next principle. The fourth one is principle of substitution between products, or as we have also known that it is also called as product-product relationship. So the suitability of more than one enterprise, when a farm is suitable for more than one enterprises, then there is the farmer need to take an important management decision, which is to choose the suitable combination of products for a given amount of resources. So he need to choose a particular combination of product or enterprise for a given amount of resources which he is having. In most of the cases, what happens that between different types of enterprises, there exists competitive relationship. And when enterprises are competitive, three things determine the combination of products which would be the most profitable for the farm business. The first one is the rate at which one enterprise substitute for others. कि कितने रेट से एक सब्स्टिट्यूट दूसरे को sorry, one enterprise is substituting the other one. The second one is the price of the product, उसका कितना प्राइस है. And the third one is the cost of producing. प्रोडक्शन का कितना कॉस्ट है ये भी डिपेंड करता है. अगर कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन सेम है तो द फर्स्ट टू पॉइंट्स इज द रेट ऑफ द वन at which the one enterprise substitute for others, or also we can say that MRPS or marginal unit of product substitution. And the second one is price of the products, or the price ratio will help the farmer to take the decision. पीसी कल्चर चालू किया तो क्या हो गया, पीसी कल्चर से सपोज उसका महीने का 30,000 एक्स्ट्रा इनकम हो रहा है और पहले एपी कल्चर से उसका महीने का 20,000 इनकम हो रहा था. तो क्या हुआ, जब वो रिप्लेस किया बी कीपिंग को तो उसका 20,000 लॉस हुआ क्योंकि वो पहले उसका महीने का मिलता था, अभी वो कम हो गया. अगर इसका वैल्यू अभी जो इनकम होगा पीसी कल्चर से उससे कम नहीं है तो ये इकोनॉमिकल नहीं है उसके लिए. जैसे कि वो इधर कॉस्ट था, कॉस्ट कम होना था, यहाँ पे रिटर्न ज्यादा हो रहा है. जो एडेड प्रोडक्ट्स है और एडेड एंटरप्राइज है उसका रिटर्न शुड बी मोर देन द एंटरप्राइज व्हिच इज बीइंग रिप्लेस्ड. Until and unless that is not economical for the farmer to change his to substitute one product or enterprise for another. So here the decision criteria should be decrease in return should be less than increase in return. So decrease in return का मतलब क्या है कि जो हम प्रोडक्ट को रिप्लेस कर रहे हैं उसका क्वांटिटी इनटू उसका प्राइस शुड बी लेस देन जो प्रोडक्ट हम ऐड कर रहे हैं उसका क्वांटिटी इनटू प्राइस. So if we just change the sides, we'll get that MRPS should be less than PR. That means marginal rate of product substitution should be less than PR. When it will prevail, we should keep on increasing the added product and we should substitute the replaced product. So in this case also there are three profit rules. The first one is if the substitution ratio or MRPS is greater than price ratio, the profit can be increased by using more of the replaced product. Why so? Because when the MRPS is more than price ratio, That means the decrease in return is more than increase in return. So it is not desirable at all. In that case, the profit should be increased by using more of the रिप्लेसेस जो कि पहले हम यूज कर रहे थे, उसी प्रोडक्ट बना रहे थे, उसी को बनाना चाहिए ताकि प्रॉफिट बढ़ता रहे. क्योंकि अगर ऐसा नहीं हुआ, अगर हम एडेड को ही बढ़ाते रहेंगे तो हमारा रिटर्न कम होता रहेगा. Decrease in return should be more than increase in return. And the second point is, if substitution ratio or MRPS is less than price ratio, profit can be increased by using more of the added product. As discussed earlier, कि अगर प्राइस रेशियो से ये छोटा है MRPS, इसका मतलब है डिक्रीज इन रिटर्न इज लेस देन इंक्रीज इन रिटर्न. तो यही हमारा इट इज डिजायरेबल ओनली, इसी से हमारा प्रॉफिट ज्यादा होगा. सो इट विल बी इकोनॉमिकल फॉर द फार्मर. So in that case, profit can be increased by using more of the added product. And the third one is that substitution ratio should be equal to PR because this point gives us the point of profit maximization. I hope it is clear. Next, I will discuss the fifth point, which is equimarginal returns principle or opportunity cost principle. So we have already discussed previously many times that the farmer has only a limited amount of capital, which he has to use among different types of enterprises. He may use for cultivation of crops, or maybe he can use for beekeeping, or maybe pisciculture, or maybe livestock rearing, whatever it is, which are technically feasible in his farm. So the farmer has to make a choice from different alternatives such that it will maximize his net revenue, or maybe we can say that net income or net returns from the farm as a whole. So this particular equimarginal principle or opportunity cost principle will help the farmer in such a way that the resources should be used in crops or enterprises where they bring not only the greatest average return but the greatest marginal return. So the farmer should combine different types of resources, and he should divide different types of enterprises, and he should divide the different resources among all these enterprises in such a way that the marginal return should be greatest, not the average return or total returns. So why this principle is also called opportunity cost principle? Because when the farm is having different use of particular resources, he will only use a particular type of enterprise. He will use that resource in a particular type of enterprise among different types of alternative. So when he is using that resource for one enterprise, some alternative or some other enterprises is foregone. So the opportunity cost is the value of the next best alternative foregone. Since the farmer is using the resource for one enterprise and not for the other, the cost of foregoing value of the next best alternative should be called as the opportunity cost. And since it is associated with this principle is called opportunity cost principle. The utility of this law is very important because it guides the farmer to plan his budget for the preparation of his cropping scheme and also his livestock program. Because with the help of this principle, he can decide how he will prepare his budget and how he will use his monetary income for different cropping scheme as well as livestock programs. It also enables him to determine enterprise relationships. With the help of this equimarginal return principle or opportunity cost principle, he can determine whether particular enterprises are complementary, competitive, or any other relationship develops among them. And lastly, it provides guidance to the adoption of diversified and specialized farming. With the help of this principle, he can also take decision regarding whether he should take up diversified farming or he should take up a particular specialized farming. The second last principle is principle of comparative advantage. Comparative advantage means when there are two types of venture, one is comparatively more advantage. That is, it's in terms of relative cases. In terms of in relative terms, one is more advantageous to the other. So according to this principle, different countries or nations or regions tends to produce those goods for which they have greatest competitive advantage and not just absolute advantage. Absolute advantage means when a country or a region can produce all the things much better than other. But in case of relative sense, we'll compare with other nations or maybe other products, and we'll decide in terms of relatively which one is better, which in which product or maybe which crop is better or the nation is better to better capable of producing that. So based on this particular principle of comparative advantage, we can see that a particular type of farming system or maybe cropping system it exists in a particular area, like cotton cultivation in black soil or maybe wheat and rice cultivation in alluvial soils like that. So this particular law, this principle of comparative advantage is an extension and application of principle of specialization and diversification. So with this principle of comparative advantage, the farmers try to decide whether they can take specialized farming or maybe diversified farming. Like in case of black soil, they only take up cotton cultivation because their soil is particularly because they have special comparative advantage for that particular crop. So they only take specialized farming. But in some cases, there may happen that they are taking diversified farming with crop cultivation, livestock rearing, etc. based on that comparative advantage principle. That's why this law is an extension and application of principles of specialization and diversification. This law also directs the farmer in selection of crop and livestock enterprises in which the available resources have the greater relative advantage. So this principle also helps the farmer to decide which crop to take, which livestock program to take, so that the resources which he is having will have the greater relative advantage. And lastly, specialized and diversified, both this type of farming is heavily dependent upon this particular law, as we have discussed earlier.
In any enterprise or business, when there is
Flow, flow type of outcome, then after a certain interval of time, the effect of the effect of sorry, there is a graphical error need to be considered. So when there is a flow over the years over a certain period of time, the effect of time should be considered. The comparison principle particularly helps in time adjustment in this situation when there is a flow of income and flow of output by taking these two things into account. One is the time element while calculating the present value of future income or maybe future value of the present income. And the second one is the risk and uncertainties involved in operation over time. Because when we are planning for the future, when we are taking into account the output or income over the years, then there are some share of risk and uncertainties there because we don't know what will happen in the future. So we should always take into account this risk and uncertainties while taking into account a particular farm plan or farm business. Now this adjustment includes discounting of future value of future income or compounding of the present income, present value. So how this compounding and discounting can be done, I have given here two formulas. The first one is for compounding. A equal to E into 1 plus R by 100 to the power n. What is A? A is the future value of present income. P is the present value or the present income. R equal to rate of interest and N is the number of years for which we are calculating. Suppose we want to calculate uh, the value of now 100 rupees. अभी का 100 rupees का कितना value होगा after 5 years or maybe after 6 years. So in that case, P will be 100, R will be maybe 6% or maybe 5% based on the market rate of interest, and N will be the number of years after how many years you want to calculate the value. Suppose it here maybe 5 or maybe 6. And in case of discounting, we want to find out the present value of the future income. मीन्स कि 2030 में 100 रुपीज का जब उसका 100 रुपीज होगा उसका अभी का वैल्यू क्या है. तो यहाँ पे क्या होगा कि वी वांट टू फाइंड आउट द प्रेजेंट वैल्यू. सपोज आपको एक बिजनेस वेंचर से 2030 में 2 लाख रुपीज मिलेगा, तो उसका अभी का वैल्यू क्या होगा उसको अगर आपको पता करना है, यू हैव टू पुट 2 लाख रुपीज एज ए, we have to put the market rate of interest as R, and क्योंकि 2022 है अभी वो 2030 तो 8 years gap, so here should be n equal to 8. Then we will find out the present value of the future income. So in this way, we can do compounding and discounting. And these are all the 7 principles which are associated with farm management. Thank you, everyone. If anyone has any question, you can write it in the chat or you can ask them.
Hello, I request participant if someone has any queries or doubt regarding this session, please ask to madam or put in comment section or chat box.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am, about this absolute advantage and relative advantage. What's the difference between both of them, ma'am?
Okay. So suppose.
Absolute and relative.
Yeah, I got your question. So suppose there are 2 countries, okay, India and Britain. So India can produce 1 unit of cloth by using 3 units of labor, and Britain can produce 1 unit of cloth using 2 unit of labor. Now, if we compare these two, we'll say that Britain has greater absolute advantage because he can produce once the same unit of cloth, same piece of cloth with lesser amount of labor. Okay. Now, suppose there are 2 types of produce. One is cloth, another one is suppose food, maybe wheat, barley, whatever. So, in case of India, if suppose there is also another thing called 1 unit of wheat or barley can be produced by India by 5 unit of labor, and that too also can be produced by Britain by 4 unit of labor. So if we look at this 2 point, then we'll say that Britain has absolute advantage for both production of these two, that they can produce cloth as well as wheat with lesser amount of labor. But in case of relative advantage, what will happen that we'll calculate in terms of per unit value. Suppose if we look at this only for this Britain, so they can produce 1 unit of cloth with 2 unit of labor and 1 unit of barley with 4 unit of labor. So if we use this 4 unit of labor to produce cloth, he will be able to produce another 2 unit of cloth. So his total production will be 3 units of cloth. But if he use 2 units of labor which he was using previously for cloth making, in the food production, he will be only able to increase the food production by half an unit. So in that case, there is no comparative advantage. He is having comparative advantage for production of cloth making. So in this way, we can say that Britain has having absolute advantage for both production of cloth and food, but he is having relative advantage in production of only cloth, not in terms of food. Hello, Pooja, is it clear? Hello. Hello.
Hello, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Pooja, is it clear?
Yeah, okay, ma'am. It's clear.
Okay. So if anyone other than Pooja doesn't have any question, then we should conclude here because this much was the class. I hope you have understood all the things. Still, if you don't have understood anything, you can ask or maybe end the session. Hello, Praveen.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think no one has any query regarding STEM. We have to explain all the things regarding farm planning, budgeting, and farm management in a very simple language. Yes, I'm audible. Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Hello, ma'am. I think
Hello.
there's a network issue.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
There's a network issue in the college. That's why he cannot able
Okay.
to connect.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm ending the
Thank you.
session. Thank
Thank
you,
you, ma'am,
everyone.
for this informative presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
जायचंच नाही बाहेर ते तुम्हाला मी ब्लॉग सोडून देतो दुसरा ब्लॉग घेऊन ये फक्त आणि